you need to know about the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. As it unfolds, the country says goodbye to its longest-reigning monarch on 19 September. The Queen's funeral takes place on Monday, 19 September, as thousands of public mourners gather in London to pay their respects, and the royal family, including the new King Charles, say their final goodbyes to the late monarch. Since the death of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, on 8 September, Britain has been observing a period of national mourning. The Queen's coffin has been lying in state, referring to the time where the coffin of a monarch or sometimes a prime minister is placed on a few before the funeral. A Westminster Hall, where people have been queuing through the night to be able to pay their respects to the late monarch. In accordance with the wishes of the new King Charles III, the public mourning period will continue until 7 days after the Queen's state funeral, which will take place at 11 a.m. on Monday, 19 September. Here we bring updates from Her Majesty's funeral as it happens. The Queen's funeral took place in Westminster Abbey, the same church in which she married Prince Philip and the Duke of Edinburgh in 1947, and where her coronation was held 6 years later. On Monday morning, ahead of the funeral, the coffin was taken from the Palace of Westminster to Westminster Abbey, and from here, following the service, it traveled in processions from Westminster Abbey to Wellington Arch, and from there, on the Windsor, the state hearse traveled in procession via the Long Walk to St. George Chapel, where a communal service took place. The Queen's private burial. A private burial for the Queen will take place at 7:30 p.m., conducted by the Dean of Windsor in the King George VI Memorial Chapel. The Queen's coffin is lowered. After the final hymn, the Queen's company, camp color, used to identify the whereabouts of the commanding officer, was placed on the coffin by King Charles. The Lord Chamberlain, the most senior member of the Queen's household, then breaks his oath of office, signifying his duty is done, and places it on the coffin too. Both will be buried with the Queen. Her Majesty's coffin was then quietly lowered as the Dean of Windsor reads a psalm. The Queen's titles were read out by the Gather King of Arms. Truth it had pleased Almighty God to take out of this transitory life unto his divine mercy, the late most high, most mighty, the most excellent monarch, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms, and Terrier's Queen, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, and sovereign of the most noble order of the Garter. Following a blessing, a congregation sang the national anthem once more before leaving the capital. The Queen's crown, scepter, and orb are taken from the coffin in particularly poignant moment. The instruments of state, the imperial state crown, the orb, and spear that were on the Queen's coffin were received by the Dean of Windsor from the Queen's Brockmaster and the Sergeant of Arms, who placed them on the high altar. The communal service of the Queen takes place. Queen Elizabeth's communal service at St. George Chapel in Windsor was conducted by the Right Reverend David Connor, Dean of Windsor, with prayer said by the Rector of Sandringham, the Minister of Catherine, Kirk, and the Chaplain of Windsor Great Park, and the blessing pronounced by the Lord Archbishop of Canterbury. The choir of St. George Chapel sang beautiful hymns during the service, including the Russian Contagion of the Dependent, which was also sung at Prince Philip's funeral. The Queen's coffin arrives at the Windsor Castle, with military personnel marching either side. Her Majesty's coffin made its way to the entrance of Windsor Castle. Ahead of the committal ceremony, in a sweet moment, the hearse praised the Queen's pony, Emma, who had stood in the grounds of the castle alongside a halter, and the late monarch corgis, Mick and Sandy, were also brought outside. Upon arrival at the castle, senior members of a royal family, led by King Charles, once again joined the procession to follow the coffin to the chapel. The Queen's coffin is carried out of Westminster Abbey to be taken to Windsor. Senior members of the royal family followed the coffin as it left the Abbey, before it will be taken to Windsor Castle, to the Queen's final resting place. Another military procession, led by the King, accompanies Her Majesty's coffin to the corner of Hyde Park, where it is transferred to a hearse. Upon passing Buckingham Place, members of staff politely stood outside and gathered to pay their respects. 2 minutes silence is observed following the service. After the service, which included a sermon from the Archbishop of Canterbury and hymns, including "The Lord is my shirt," and 2 minutes silence was observed within Westermine Abbey and across the country. Afterwards, the national anthem was sung. The Queen's coffin bears a heartfelt note from her son, King Charles. On the Queen's coffin is a beautiful wreath of flowers with handwritten note from King Charles, reading, "In loving and devoted memory, Charles R." Poignantly, the flowers include foliage taken from the gardens of Buckingham Palace, Carlton's House, and Highgrove House. The Palace have confirmed that the mitre used in arrangement was cut from a plant that was used in Her Majesty's wedding bouquet in 1947. The Queen's coffin is carried into Westminster Abbey in front of the royal family's procession. Senior members of the royal family followed the Queen's coffin into church, including the Queen and Queen consort Camilla, Prince William and wife Kate, and Prince Harry and wife Meghan. King Charles travels with Prince William and Harry to the Queen's funeral. The King and Prince of Wales, Prince Harry and Peter Phillips, the son of Princess Anne, traveled by car together to see the Queen's coffin transferred to a gun carriage ahead of its journey to the Westminster Abbey. King Charles, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, Prince William, Prince Harry, and Peter Phillips then walked behind the coffin to the Abbey, where it was received by choral song. A bell tolls every minute for 96 minutes to mark Queen Elizabeth's life. Ahead of and during the funeral service, Big Ben tolled every minute for 96 minutes to mark every year of the late Queen Elizabeth's life. Prince George and Princess Charlotte attend the Queen's funeral. The young Prince George and Princess Charlotte, children of Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, and Prince William and Prince of Wales, arrived at the funeral alongside the other members of the royal family. Of course, the late Queen's attended family were also in attendance of nor their mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. Senior members of the royal family who were present include her before children, King Charles III, the Prince Royal, the Duke of York, and Prince Edward, as well as Camilla, the Queen consort, the Countess of Wessex, and the monarch's grandchildren, Prince William and Harry, Peter Phillips and Sarah Tito, Princesses Patrick and Princess Eugene, and Lady Louise Windsor and James Viscount Severn were also present at the ceremony. Spouses of all close family were there too, including the Princess of Wales and Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. World leaders, including Joe Biden, arrived at the funeral. U.S. President Joe Biden arrived at the Abbey alongside First Lady Jill Biden, the UK's former Prime Minister, and their partners, including including Boris Johnson, David Cameron, and Theresa May, also took their seats. Liz Truss, the current UK Prime Minister, also arrived to join the protesting Minister Abbey. Along the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, and some of Queen's closest staff, including her ladies-in-waiting and footmen. The Queen's funeral is being live-streamed. The funeral service is being broadcast on television. BBC One and BBC News will be available to stream on BBC iPlayer. Sky News has also confirmed its broadcast schedule for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, with live coverage through Told. The date available on Sky News and the Sky News app, YouTube, and on Freeview. Where will the Queen be buried? After the funeral, the Queen's coffin will travel to her final resting place, St. George Chapel, in Windsor Castle, Her Majesty's official residence. She will be buried beside Prince Philip, who has laid to rest in the royal vault of the chapel after his funeral on 17 April 2021.